warned you not to come! You... Please, my daughter. Please.
Some weddings sparkle for the photos, but this one, it cracked right down the middle before the first toast was even poured. And the wild part? Nobody saw the first warning sign except the woman who caused it, the bride herself, Jade Ellington. But before we get to the slap heard around the ballroom, let me tell you how the day really started. Hours before the chaos, Mariah Stone had hissed, You knew, and you still came here like nothing happened." Her voice was sharp enough to slice glass. Cameras froze mid-flash as if the universe itself said, "Hold up, what just dropped? That tiny box on the floor? Not just a gift. It held a whole buried chapter Jade had never wanted anyone to open, and that was only the appetizer. Now picture this. The grandest hotel ballroom in Atlanta, glowing like someone dipped it in gold. Chandeliers dripping crystals, silk curtains flowing like water, white roses lined up straighter than a military parade. The kind of wedding that made rich people brag for months. At the center, Jade Ellington, confident, stunning, finally stepping into the world she fought tooth and nail to reach. Born to a single black mother, Loretta Ellington, who worked 2 exhausting jobs, Jade had clawed her way up every rung of society's ladder, and now she was marrying Andrew Whitmore. Yes, that Whitmore family. Old money, polished smiles, the type who pretend they adore you while checking the stitching on your dress. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Loretta arrived late. Not fashionably late. Late. Uber dropped her 2 blocks away. She walked in, wearing old flats, holding a brown paper-wrapped gift. Guests whispered, eyes slicing through her like lasers. And Jade? She felt that sting of embarrassment she pretended she'd outgrown. Can you believe a bride worried more about judgments than her own mother? Yeah. But then it got worse. Because that cracked feeling in Jade's chest, it was the beginning of the avalanche. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe Silent Divide Tales because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The ceremony kicked off like a scene ripped straight out of a luxury magazine. White petals drifted down the aisle, violins whispered through the air, and every guest leaned in as Jade Ellington walked toward her new future with Andrew Whitmore. Cameras flashed nonstop, the kind of pictures rich folks frame above a fireplace to brag about for decades. But behind every perfect shot was a heartbeat tightening with something Jade couldn't shake. Loretta Ellington, second to last row. Not because she wanted to sit there, but because nobody, not even the wedding planner, offered her a seat closer. Loretta held her small brown paper gift in her lap like it was treasure. And honestly, it was. That locket had baby photos of Jade and her late father, plus an engraving Jade had never seen. But who cared about meaning when people were whispering like high school brats? Who's that woman? She doesn't look like family. Did you see her dress? Can you imagine hearing those comments at your own daughter's wedding? But then Loretta just smiled, because that's what mothers do. They take the punches so their kids don't have to bleed. Meanwhile, Jade stood at the altar, smiling for the cameras while choking on her own pride. Every glance at Loretta dragged her back to the cramped apartment, the thrift store shoes, the teasing at school about her mom's accent, things she used to wear like armor. But now, in this shiny ballroom full of Whitmores and their perfect white-gloved world, those same memories felt like cracks in her carefully polished image. Mini twist incoming. After the ceremony, the reception roared to life. Champagne bubbling, guests posing, bragging, fake laughing. But Loretta? She hovered near the buffet like she wasn't sure she belonged in a place with crystal plates and gold forks. Then it happened. One of Andrew's relatives walked up to Loretta and asked if she was part of the catering staff. Jade heard it. Her pulse skipped. And this was her moment to defend her mother, to shut that racist nonsense down, to step up. But she didn't. Instead, she laughed nervously and changed the subject. Can you believe she dodged her own mother like that? But then, things spiraled faster than anyone expected. Loretta Ellington waited until the crowd thinned a little before approaching Jade. She held that tiny brown paper-wrapped box with both hands, like it was the last piece of her heart she hadn't given away. Her eyes were soft, hopeful. the kind of look only a mother gives on her daughter's biggest day. "I wanted to give you this, sweetheart," she whispered, but the wrong people were watching. Right over Loretta's shoulder stood Andrew's mother, lips tightening like she'd just smelled poverty in 4K. A couple of guests snickered at the simple wrapping, as if kindness came with a designer label. Jade felt the room closing in, eyes judging her, waiting to see if the new Mrs. Whitmore still had old roots clinging to her like lint. Her pride squeezed her ribs so tight she could barely breathe. Can you imagine being so scared of rich strangers that your own mother becomes a problem? But then, Jade made the worst choice of her life. "Mom, not now," she whispered sharply, sharper than she realized. Loretta stepped closer anyway, offering the gift. Her hands trembled. She didn't hear the warning in Jade's voice. And then the moment froze in time. Jade slapped her mother's hand away. The gasp that ripped through the ballroom sounded like the walls themselves cracked. The music died mid-note. The brown paper box hit the floor, split open, and the locket inside slid across the marble like a secret trying to escape. Can you believe a whole crowd watched a bride slap her own mother? But then the silence got even heavier. Loretta slowly knelt, her breath shaking. Tears splashed onto the marble as she picked up the broken box. The locket lay open, showing a tiny baby Jade wrapped in a blanket, and her father in uniform, smiling like today was supposed to be his moment too. Jade's chest tightened until she could barely stand, and for the first time she noticed the engraving. "For our daughter's big day. Love, Dad." That line hit her harder than any judgment in the room. Then a deep, cold voice cut through the whispers. Charles Whitmore Sr. stepped forward. "Let's keep the family drama private," he said, with a fake sympathy that barely hid the insult underneath. Can you believe he said that? Like, the humiliation wasn't happening right in front of him? But then, Loretta stood. She wiped her cheeks, straightened her back, and whispered to Jade, trembling but steady, "I prayed for this day your whole life, but I never thought love would make you ashamed of me." Jade shattered on the inside. And this wedding, it wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a funeral for everything she thought she'd built. The ballroom emptied faster than a fire drill. Guests scattered with mumbled excuses, pretending they weren't dying to gossip about the bride who slapped her own mother. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered like TMZ interns on caffeine. By midnight, the glittering hall looked nothing like the fairy tale Jade Ellington thought she'd crafted. Just overturned glasses, wilted petals, and a lone locket glinting under a table like it was waiting for her to pick herself back up. Jade sat at the edge of the dance floor, her gown wrinkled, mascara streaked, everything she'd built collapsing inside her. Andrew had gone upstairs to rest, he claimed, but she knew he just didn't want to face the storm tied to her last name. The photographers packed up, the music crew unplugged cables. It was over before the cake even had time to melt. Can you believe a wedding died faster than the champagne bubbles? But then, the quiet forced Jade to see the truth. She replayed every second, the slap, the gasp, Loretta kneeling, the engraving from her father. Every sacrifice her mother ever made weighed heavier than that crystal chandelier hanging above her. Suddenly, all the wealth she married into felt cheap, flimsy, meaningless compared to the woman she'd hurt. Days slipped into weeks. Jade called, texted, begged. Loretta never answered. So Jade drove back to the old neighborhood, the one she'd once tried to outrun. When the door finally opened, Loretta stood there looking older, smaller, but still holding that quiet strength she'd always carried. She didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't demand anything. She just whispered, "You look beautiful that day," and gently closed the door. That softness hurt more than any slap could. Can you imagine realizing you may have lost the one person who ever loved you without conditions? But then, Jade didn't run. She didn't hide. She placed the locket on the doorstep, the same one Loretta had saved for years, and walked away knowing she had a lifetime of work to do if she ever wanted forgiveness. Jade finally understood something the Whitmores never could. Status can be taken. Reputation can crumble. But a mother's heart, once broken, it's the hardest thing to earn back, and that, not the wedding, not the photos, not the Whitmore name, was her real story. Thank you for watching Silent Divide Tales, where real stories cut deeper than diamonds. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next powerful tale.